Follow the White Rabbit is a game that will teach you practical politics. Practical politics is called practical politics because it is non-voting, which makes it very, very practical. Conventional politics is, of course, rule-based politics, which is what you do at the voting booth. It's very, very rule-based and timeline-based, every 4 years, every 2 years, so on and so forth. And full-spectrum practical politics is engaging and taking out an opponent or a system or a corporation, so on and so forth, by any means necessary under the rules or under the laws, but never breaking the rules or never breaking the laws. But to understand anything, we first have to teach you practical politics, which is non-voting politics. The first basics are the art of staying on point or using a talking point and being able to say it over and over again to make your point, not arguing, just making a point. But this is an introduction, again, to Follow the White Rabbit, and Follow the White Rabbit is a game that will teach you practical politics. We had a very odd incident in America, and still do, but in America in 1998, right around that time, 97, 98, the Internet was basically owned by the racial struggle. I mean, it was outright owned. We were everywhere online. At the same time, a lot of energy was being channeled there. But something weird had happened in the society. In America, everyone around the world knows that you have a Bill of Rights and you have all these free speech privileges. Well, that's true. But it's not. Nicholas Griffin from the British National Party made an interesting statement. He said, America has all kinds of free speech, but they don't use it. Well, that's not true. If you can get fired on the job for saying something, you don't have free speech. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it says in the Bill of Rights or the Constitution, so on and so forth. If you're saying it and getting fired, you don't have free speech. But from a revolutionary standpoint, from more obvious is better, in 1998, you had a new media going off that had totally free speech that everyone was using. To this day, no one says anything at their office because they're going to get fired. They get online and they rant about it. Well, believe it or not, there is no hate speech law you can't get around if you're wise. We've gotten around every single kind of closed society weird rule regarding to speech, and I mean, it's very simple to do. All of our talking points now get around all kinds of free speech codes in Germany and whatnot. It's very simple. It's a matter of staying on message and having someone clever like Bob come up with something for the right time. Mr. Soros, I mentioned him in Eastern Europe, the Open Society Foundation. Well, they bought all these copying machines and they put them in colleges, they put them in universities, in basements, and they let unsupervised, or so they say. But kids were allowed to come in, people were allowed to come in and photocopy things and spread ideals around. Well, all that stuff was illegal. A lot of their ideals were illegal, but there's no way to police that. Well, they did a crackdown. They cracked down on some things, but they could never really crack down, because they didn't remove the copiers. And so basically that situation really helps him. The more they crack down, or the more something becomes subversive, the more powerful it becomes. I'm always amused, and I would encourage you to go to YouTube and look up Nazi. Look how many posts some of these different Nazi things get. Nazism, of course, is very subversive. It's illegal in Germany. It's illegal to talk about. It's illegal, period. It's illegal to trade, old Nazi coins, old Nazi helmets. I mean, Yahoo people go to jail for that in Germany. But that just makes it more for some reason, people get attracted to that. It is the oldest rule in the book. In Mexico, a lot of people think American gun laws are too lax. Well, Mexican has the most ruthless gun laws on earth. Yeah, the Mexican gun laws on the books are more ruthless than anything in the Nordic countries. They're ruthless. Ruthless gun laws in Mexico. And you can go to Mexico and you can get all kinds of guns, rocket launchers, who knows what. Don't believe me? Go down there and try. Yeah, fly over to Mexico. You can buy whatever you want. They're all illegal, but you can still get it done. And by making it illegal, of course, it makes it more plentiful. It's an old law. And by the way, most of them don't come from America. No, on any gun bazaar, you'll find out that 80-90% of them are from somewhere else. Getting guns across the border from America ain't as easy as you think. It's probably a lot easier to get them from overseas. But again, if you have all kinds of weird laws on the books, it just makes stuff more attractive and easier to do. There's something about it. It's natural law or whatever. But we had a case in 98 where the internet was taking off. And the easy way to channel energy into a copier or into the internet, because there is to basically start cracking down. We had a case where there's a crackdown. You're losing jobs. You're losing jobs for saying something, but yet you have free speech. Well, you don't have free speech. You only think you do. You know, white rabbits, like all rabbits, you got to be beat over the head with a carrot. They got to see things. The more obvious, the better. The worse is better. The more obvious is better. I mean, you can't get anything worse than not being able to say something on the job without getting fired. You know, so the more obvious is better. So believe it or not, I want the crackdown. Sure. I want it. Now, it's unconstitutional. Yes, it's nasty. It's wrong. A lot of people around the world would be upset. But if it's illegal to say something on the job, we might as well make it formal, and so we can get to a solution. You see, by cracking down, they create a problem. That problem is going to get a lot bigger reaction than they think, and it's all going to be channeled online because that's the only outlet. And then there's going to be a solution. It's just that simple. I knew in 1998, or I had a good idea, that there was no way that they could control speech on the internet. There was no way. It's impossible. In fact, even with all just recently, over the past 24 months, 36 months, China has more and more regulation of the internet, and they've become very good at it. But even as sophisticated as China is on regulating the internet, is not as easy as you think. There's always someone more clever. And in China, you know, you make something subversive and it makes it that more attractive. It's just what it is. But a lot of times that helps their ideals. It did when it comes to copiers and putting out ideals in a closed society that was about to crash. It really helped the Open Society Foundation, George Soros' Open Society Foundation. It accelerated things. It accelerated the transfer of power in Eastern Europe because all the laws were silly, everything was silly. And in this country, we're dealing with something more interesting. We're dealing with a common sense of oppression among non-victims. You know, you got to channel that energy to get to a final solution. You got to get them to the point where they're going to move or they're going to act or whatever. But that was an interesting scenario. And to this day, you know, America, they now have it. Of course, if they crack down on speech, they could crack down on the internet. But now it is so wide and so deep. You know, the internet came out. It was like we're sitting in front of a puddle of information. Then someone, a meteor came from heaven and smashed into the puddle and made this big crack in the rock, and all this water started seeping in. And we found out underneath that puddle there's an ocean, and we don't know how deep it goes. There's some very weird stuff on the internet, of course, and all kinds of interesting stuff in regards to the racialist meeting and you know, everything else. So we were in late 1998, and we had this big contradiction that's still there. You could say whatever you want, supposedly under law, but if you do it, you're going to get fired or they make your life miserable. Well, you don't have free speech, so you might as well make it formal. And the more obvious, the better. And there was also another scenario, too. I was sitting at my office that one day, surrounded by associates, and I had Bob had a website then discussing his ideals, and he was putting together what I will call the mantra. He was putting it together, and he had it put together in a roundabout way. It was a similar type of post, you know, that you could easily soundbite and make talking points from, whatever. I knew what he was up to, and I was reading his website simply because, like a lot of people, you know, let me tell you a story offhand. I've never been to any type of racialist meeting. I've never been to any type of white nationalist meeting or Stormfront meetings or anything like that. But Bob went to a couple of them, and the back channel feedback was pretty entertaining for us. It was, you know, Bob's into practical politics. Practical politics is, of course, non-voting politics. And Bob, it worked for the CIA, whatnot, and it kind of scares some people. Is what the back channel chocolate was. No one really knew what to think of him, other than obviously he's pretty smart. He's a Southern gentleman.